What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Amazon Wholesale Podcast. I really think you guys are going to get a ton of value out of this one, especially those of you that are on the newer side that are either transitioning from arbitrage into wholesale, or you are just looking to scale wholesale in general, right? Because what you're about to hear and what you're about to see is a one-on-one coaching call between myself and this is actually a friend of a friend. This took place a few months back. He is starting to work for a big private label brand owner, but he's also interested in starting his own Amazon selling side hustle on the side. He's doing a little bit of arbitrage. He's interested in wholesale. You're going to hear the advice that I have for him, and I think you're going to be able to learn a lot from our conversation here. Now, before we jump into the episode and you get to meet the guests and hear the bulk of the interview, a quick word from the sponsor of this week's episode, and the sponsor of this week's episode is Boxum. So Boxum is by far the biggest time saver and, quite honestly, biggest money saver when it comes to getting your FBA shipments into Amazon quickly and more efficiently. And the feature of Boxum that is by far the most beneficial is the ability to use 2D barcodes with your FBA shipments. Now, if you don't know what 2D barcodes are, basically what they are is they contain a lot of information about your shipment, and it is a single barcode that Amazon just has to scan once, and they know exactly what's in the box. What this does is this reduces errors, it speeds up processing time, and in my experience, since we started using 2D barcodes, our shipments check into FBA anywhere from 2 to 4 days quicker than usual, which leads to a ton of additional sales. So guys, go to boxem.com. That's boxem.com. Check out the tool. You can get a free 14-day trial and see it for yourself. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the episode. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll jump right in.
So you're doing OA currently, you said, right?
Yeah. It's been slowed down a lot since the end of Q4, as you can imagine, but still going a little bit there. And I think there's a lot for me to still learn on that front.
So what's your goal with Amazon? Like, are you trying to keep pushing away? Are you trying to get into wholesale? I mean, you're about to go work for Aaron. So are you trying to pivot to private label? Like, what does that look like?
I think if I were to look long run, it is private label. I like the idea of creating and kind of owning the brand, which I know is quite different from the OA and the wholesale space, but I think down the line, that is the end goal. It seems like too steep a gradient to start right off the bat there. So I wanted to get my feet with Amazon, which is why I started with the OA space. And then, go from there, learn different ways to source. If potentially that leads to some wholesale opportunities, even while I'm still working with Aaron. Obviously, that's going to be my main focus is going to be that. But this is like potentially something I keep doing on the side to continue learning.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on as far as like private label being difficult to jump into as a beginner. Yeah. I mean, I know people that started with private label and they're crushing it. They're doing great, but like it's one of those business models where it's probably got like if I had to guess, like a 95% failure rate. Like if you're brand new to Amazon, you've never sold on Amazon before, and you start with private label, that doesn't mean you're going to fail at Amazon. But like most people I know that started with private label, if they're still doing Amazon, they pivoted to like arbitrage or wholesale, right? Because the guys that I know that crush private label have been doing it for a really long time, or they started with like arbitrage or wholesale and then got into PL.
Yeah, it's a good low risk way to like learn the platform, learn how Seller Central works, learn how to send products into Amazon, all that stuff, learn about their fees. And I mean, I can go buy something at Walgreens a few minutes away and then sell it on Amazon, and I get that proof of concept very quickly without needing to spend $10,000 on a purchase order from some supplier and creating it and samples and all that.
And that's always my advice to new sellers. And like, even, I do wholesale, right? Like I usually don't even encourage brand new sellers to start with wholesale. Again, I know plenty of people that have started with wholesale and that are doing well. And I do think that if you're brand new to Amazon, you're going to have a higher chance of succeeding starting with wholesale versus starting with private label, only because private label is just like you're creating a brand from scratch. Whereas with wholesale, you're piggybacking on existing brands. So that chances of success are a little higher. But I do always recommend people, it's like, listen, start with arbitrage. Better yet, start with retail arbitrage. Like you said, go to Walgreens, scan the clearance products. All you need is Keepa and SellerAmp, and that's literally all you need. And I mean, I know people that, and this blows people's minds when it works like this, and it doesn't work like this every time, but when it does, you see the light bulb go off. People, they go to a retail store, they scan products, they find a profitable product, and maybe it's like super low ranked, right? So it's selling a ton. They list it FBM when they pull it off the shelf, and they check out and they're on the way home and they sell it like on the way home. And it's like, because they listed FBM, and it just like, blows people's
during
minds.
December, and it's like, holy shit, this is great, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, it's that proof of concept where you're like,
Yeah.
man, like this actually works.
On like a very fast selling listing, you finally gets delivered, you list it, an hour later, 10, 15 units gone. It's like, damn.
Right. Yeah, people sleep on FBM too. But I mean, my business is 100% FBA. I personally don't love FBM because we use 3PLs and it's just very expensive to do FBM with a 3PL. It works for the right type of product, but overall, you're going to have a lot more luck FBMing if you're doing the fulfillment yourself or if you have your own warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a good place to start just for even testing it, you know? You don't have to wait
Right.
for the delay for it to check into Amazon and everything. And so
yeah. And that's go ahead.
Did you start with OA?
Yeah, so I started with OA back. Well, actually, I started with used books. So back when we graduated from college, like a couple of days later, I started going just to thrift stores and buying books for like 50 cents, $1, $2, and then did that for a couple of months. And then I moved to Chicago right at like 2 months after graduation for my job, and I didn't have my car. Like I wasn't gonna have a car in Chicago, so that's when I was like, well, if I'm gonna keep selling on Amazon, I got to figure something out. So I actually was still doing books for a little bit. I joined like the University of Chicago Facebook groups and like try to buy books there locally. So I put a post in the Facebook group. And then there was like one thrift store that was walking distance of my apartment that I would go to sometimes. But like for the most part, I started to transition away from that and into online arbitrage. And that was back when, I don't know if you've heard of tactical arbitrage.
Yeah, I haven't used it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've heard it's actually gone downhill significantly, but that was back when tactical arbitrage was like first coming on the scene. There was like the owner of tactical arbitrage had like a Facebook group. There were a few hundred people in it, and it was just like everybody in the group was using TA to do online arbitrage, and I was just trying to like soak up all the information and start sourcing that way. And that's really when I started to like, or like every day I was like trying to buy products or at least like looking at products. And then probably it was January of 2019 is when I fully like was like, all right, forget OA, I want to do wholesale.
Oh, wow. So it didn't take you that long to transition from like books to OA and then eventually to wholesale.
Yeah, not really, because books would have started books May of 2017, then OA like mid to late 2017, and then I did OA all the way through 2018. And again, I started like I remember it was January 6th, 2019 was the day that and the reason I remember that is because that's when like our business entity was like fully formed. Like I remember I got our EIN number that day, and like that's when I started calling suppliers because I was just like waiting on that to be able to call them.
Nice, man. That's so cool. And did your sourcing change at all, like when you were going from OA to wholesale?
Yeah, I mean, well, as far as like the types of products we're looking for, or like our criteria.
I think it's more like the sourcing strategies, right? Like I think, at least in my case, it's been, okay, start off with a lot of reverse sourcing. So you're stocking all of these other storefronts. But that seems to be, at least for me personally, I've hit like a lot of roadblocks really being able to expand beyond that. Because I think there's only so many products you can find that way. And now it's like, okay, do I need to master keep a product finder, or do I need to go some other route to continue to source and like always have products to purchase?
So keep a product finder is super powerful. Like I'm convinced you could find unlimited OA leads with keep a product finder. Like if you're using the right search, but like if you couple that with storefront stocking and reverse sourcing with OA, I mean, there's no reason you can't build a 7-figure OA business like just with those 3 methods: KPF, reverse sourcing, and then storefront stocking. Now, when it comes to wholesale, like I didn't really have a strategy, partially because I was never like really that good at OA. Like I think at my peak, maybe I was like, I think the biggest OA order I ever placed was like $750. I remember like shitting my pants. Yeah, I was like, oh my God. Because it was for like, it was some supplement off some like, it was one of those supplement brands where it's like the doctor's name is the brand. It was like Dr. So-and-so supplement. And I was like buying it off their website. And these were like pretty high price supplements. And yeah, that was like my biggest order at the time. So when it came to wholesale, I guess I was just brute forcing it. I would just like go on Amazon. I was doing a lot of, I guess you could call it like storefront stalking, where I was looking at like sellers that I thought were doing wholesale. And I was just looking at the brands they carried and just looking for brands that like had FBA competition, weren't dominated by Amazon, And if I found like one listing that fit that criteria, I just Googled the brand name, threw them in a Google sheet, and I would find like 20 or 30 brands that way. And then I would call them, find 20 or 30, call 20 or 30, and then just kind of like repeat that.
Like trying to get those accounts, like trying to get a distributor for them.
Yeah. Or really, I was going like straight to the brand when I started. Like I didn't even really know that. I think I knew that you could buy through distribution, but like there was one guy that I was watching at the time, Dylan Carter. He founded Aura, the repricer, which I don't know if you've heard of that tool, but like he was one of like 2 people at the time back in 2019 that was putting out any sort of wholesale content. And his whole strategy was doing exactly what I just said. He was like reverse sourcing, looking to go directly to the brand. So that's kind of like all I knew. So I remember, this was so funny. One of the first brands I called him up. It was a supplement brand. I don't remember the one, but it was like a big brand. And I called him up and I was like, hey, can I open a wholesale account? And the lady was like, oh, well, we only sell to brick and mortar stores. And I was like, oh, okay, well, and I opened like a UPS mailbox, you know, and like the UPS store is kind of like our business address. So I was like, oh, well, I have a brick and mortar like address, and I sent it to her. And I remember the email. So she was like I just looked this up on Google Earth. Like, this is a UPS store. And I was like, oh, never mind. I was like, oh, like she means like an actual like store. Okay. Well, like, so that was funny to think about.
Those initial barriers when you kind of don't even know what you're doing. You're just trying to figure it out as you go.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people like, you've got to have that conversation like 100 times, at least like 50 to 100 times. And then like you nail down your pitch, you kind of at least know what to lead with at that point. But then every supplier is different. Every conversation can be different. It just depends on kind of like your strategy.
Right. And I'm guessing now you don't lead with like, hey, I'm an Amazon seller.
No.
Distribution company, so on and so forth, e-commerce or.
Yeah. So like this weekend I'm going to a trade show, and like most of these vendors don't really care if you sell on Amazon, but most of them will ask like, well, are you an Amazon seller? Do you sell on Amazon? Usually to say like, yeah, we're an e-commerce retailer. We've been in business for, I guess I've been selling on Amazon since May of 2017. So I'll say, yeah, we've been, wow. yeah. Cause so I'll just be like, oh, we're coming up on 7 years in business. We are an e-commerce retailer. And I usually get out in front of it. I say like, we do a ton of business on Amazon. Like we've been big on there for a long time. And I almost phrase it in a way where they're like, where they would, if they ask me like, well, why do you guys sell on Amazon? I'd be like, well, why wouldn't we? Like, we'd be stupid not to, right? Like, it's the biggest retail sales platform in the country. Like, are you kidding me? Of course we do. And then when you say it like that, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
They don't look at you as like, oh, this guy that's just flipping stuff on Amazon. They're like, oh no, he's e-commerce and he's leveraging Amazon because it's the biggest platform.
And it's, even though it's like that, what you said is what we're doing. It's just like, it's how you position it, right? Like, and that's what I talk about like a lot of my content. It's like, guys, it's all positioning. Like we are all Amazon sellers at the end of the day. But if you call yourself an Amazon seller, they're going to be like, get away from me. But if you say like, oh, I'm an e-commerce retailer and I leverage the biggest retail sales channel in the US, which is Amazon, then it's like, oh, it's a completely different like perception,
Interesting, huh? Because it's the same thing, but it's just the way you position it, and it makes a huge difference with how they perceive it and how they perceive you.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about. So is your goal, like, are you looking to, I know you said you're kind of exploring different avenues, but like, what would you say like your short-term goal is? Like, would you want to keep doing OA for the next quarter, 2 quarters or so as you transition into your new job? Or like, what's your thought?
Yeah, so I think for the short term, given it's going to be quite the learning curve in terms of learning the entire private label process with Aaron, I don't want to go and expand into wholesale in these next few months because that'd just be, I think, taking on too many things that wouldn't allow me to
I wouldn't
do my best with that, which is my priority, and then also continue to do here. So I mean, I've been doing OA since I think the end of October, early November last year, so I have a decent grasp for that now. Obviously, November, December were great. Mm-hmm. So I think in terms of my short-term goals would be just master that aspect of sourcing so that even now where it's like a lot slower than it was a few months ago, I can still have like some steady purchasing of products.
Right.
Because that's what I've been running into, a lot of the times if I just do reverse sourcing or storefront stocking, whatever, a lot of the times those are things that a bunch of other people found. So as soon as I like order it, get it, send it into Amazon, tanks.
Right.
And I think maybe that's something that could potentially be a little bit avoided with Keep a Product Finder, because it's a little bit more proactive rather than reactive. So yeah, to make that a little bit shorter is, yeah, to continue improving on OA so I can continue to generate income that way and continue learning more throughout as I go.
Because if I were you, I mean, again, working for Aaron is going to be like a masterclass, and not just like Amazon private label, because I think that's doing what he's doing a disservice. It's going to be a masterclass in like brand building and marketing. And like, I mean, he's a top 100 Amazon seller, and you're literally walking into the company as an, like, you're going to learn so much. If I were you and private label is the end goal, I'd focus on soaking up everything and you know this, but like I'd soak up everything I could at Zule. And then I would continue trying to grow my OA business. Cause like, if I were you, I'd want to just get better at like Amazon as a platform, you know, like operations wise really is all I care about. Cause you're going to learn how to market. You're going to learn how to build a brand through him. Like he's going to teach you all the stuff that, you know, he's going to shortcut your learning curve by years. And then, you know, 6 months or a year from now, however long that is, you're going to be like, dude, I know how to sell on Amazon. Like I know how the platform works. I know the operations, and I just got a MBA level education and I got paid for it working for this company. So now it's like, you should be able to launch killer brands within a year, you know?
Yeah. And then plus like great opportunity for partnerships down the line as well. You know, he's the one that taught me, and then I'll be able to work with him potentially going forward for a long time. And to your point, yeah, there's no reason why not to continue doing some OA to continue learning the platform itself. There's a lot of things that even a few months in, like, oh, that's actually something new. I didn't know that this worked that way or something like that. So yeah.
And so one tip that I did just remember from my OA days. So I remember back when like I was kind of transitioning out of OA and into wholesale, I was doing a lot of just OA groceries, but I was targeting listings that had no FBA sellers on them. So it's like only FBM sellers, yet the listing was priced crazy high. And if I come in as an FBA seller and undercut all the other competition, I can, you know, take a sales rank of say 250K down to say 50K. But since it was so overpriced to begin with, maybe I'm, instead of selling at 150% ROI, well, maybe I'm only selling at a 50% ROI now. But because I priced it reasonably, I'm actually getting more sales. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so like
that's genius, and it's groceries, so you're not getting returns.
Yeah, so that's what, like, that was my whole. I did like that exact model for like probably, I don't know, a month and a half, 2 months, only sourcing from Walmart. And I think I had up to like maybe 150 active SKUs. And like one brand in particular, I'll give you an example. It was Juanita's chips, tortilla chips was the brand. They were selling on Walmart for like, you know, it's like a bag of chips is like, I don't know, $2.50. There was a listing on Amazon for a 4-pack of the chips. The 4-pack was selling for like $39.99, right? Your buy cost is like $10. So again, there was no FBA sellers. It was a shitty listing. So like, whatever, it wasn't getting, like, people just weren't paying attention to it. So my buy cost is 10. I send it into FBA. I cut the price to maybe like $32.99. And now there's a prime offer on the listing. That ended up being like one of my, like, I was selling probably 5 to 8 units per day, like doubling my money on every sale, because I mean, the margin, again, you know, $10 buy, $32.99 sale,
Huge,
really good margin. So like I would, and like, I'm no Keep a Product Finder expert, but do you know who Chris Grant is? Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah. You guys did the wholesale challenge together, right? About a month back.
Yeah. So he's like the KPF godfather. Like he knows all about Keepa. And so I think he's got I don't know if he has a lot on YouTube. On his Twitter, I don't know if you're on Twitter, but he posts a thread every day. And he posts a lot of Keep a Product Finder threads. So I would just like kind of soak up his knowledge on KPF and take his strategies and apply it to that niche of like, all right, I'm going to look for products that have no FBA sellers, that, you know, are priced between here and here, and that I can just like reverse source on Walmart or something like that.
Yeah, because I could do that. Like if I master Keep, I could apply what you just said and then create like some search for it, right? So now we have every product that has, I don't know, high price, no FBA sellers, and then in grocery, and then see if I can track that back to finding it to like a Walmart or Walgreens or something like that that's local.
Yeah, and you could do that for any category. Like I just use grocery as an example. And he posted a thread, it was within the last 2 weeks, I think, where like that was his exact, he like set these filters. He's like, all right, with these filters, I did no, FBM buy box, price between here and here, sales rank here, and like, is 50,000 results. And like, here's how I'm going to go through the results, right? Like that type of thing. So like KPF is super, super powerful. Like it's really just choose a search method, and like that one search method alone, you can go into such a rabbit hole and find so many leads.
Yeah, it's one way I never thought about it before, because normally when you learn, it's like look for something that's already low BSR. But if it's that high priced and you can still make a good margin, you can actually bring the BSR of the listing down yourself. So you're creating your own market there.
That's some of our best products ever. Like, and wholesale too. We do this all the time in wholesale. It's like the buy box would have us at a 200% ROI, but it's selling 2 units a month. I'd rather make a 40% ROI and sell 50 units a month. And all I got to do is just slash the price, right? And so, and also too, I mean, I get no kickback from this, but Chris does have a course, Keepa Academy. It's like $297. I don't know why the hell he hasn't raised the price, but like, if you really want to learn Keepa, and not just like, the basics, but like, I think, don't quote me on this, I think he goes very deep into KPF in that course. I mean, the ROI is very clear on that.
Worth it. Yeah. For $300, I mean, if you can really just get even some more mastery of it, I think it could definitely be worth it. You can pay yourself back with just one good search.
Yeah, literally one product. So
yeah. Well, nice, man. Yeah, thanks for that. And just out of curiosity, does your sourcing change a lot in wholesale? I mean, obviously you're looking for different criteria, but I'm guessing you're not using Keepa Product Finder or anything like that.
So I don't use KPF. My team doesn't. It's perfectly viable in wholesale. In fact, it's a huge asset in wholesale. We use Smart Scout, which is just it's a software tool. It's similar to KPF, but it's got way more features. Like certain features of Smart Scout can be duplicated in KPF, but I prefer Smart Scout because it's got a lot of like additional stuff. So, but I mean, the method that that Chris talks about with KPF, perfectly applicable in wholesale.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So hopefully that helped.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I've never even thought about approaching it that way. But yeah, now that I'm going to be digging even more into Amazon into different ways, there's a lot that could be done.
Yeah, man, there's so much. I mean, there's unlimited opportunity. That's why, I mean, it's 2024. You see all people bitching about, oh, it's saturated. Oh, it's not profitable, whatever. It's like, you're just not trying. Like as long as Amazon's a marketplace, there's going to be unlimited opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
Like I firmly believe that.
Yeah. When I first met Eric, we were talking about it, and he's like, unless you're Justin Bieber or something, Amazon is the best way to get rich.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I mean, it's true. Like there's people, like you see them all over social media, like no education, no background, minimal capital, like just in all intents and purposes, like not much going for them. And then they come across Amazon and it's like, oh, I did my first flip. Oh, I did my fifth. Now I did my 10th. And it's like, it just snowballs. And also it snowballs so well. Like as long as you've got, $500 to start, if you're doing arbitrage, really is probably the minimum I would recommend. I mean, if you're buying smart and you're buying right, you could snowball that so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, leverage credit if you're responsible enough as well, but there's so many different ways to get started. If not, it'll take longer, but you just keep recycling that $500 and it'll go a long way.
Yep, exactly.
Well, cool, man. Yeah, this was great.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm glad that helped.